Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into some really fascinating topics, get you truly well informed.
Glad to be diving in.
Today, we're setting off on, well, an absolutely epic journey. We're going deep into one of humanity's oldest, most profound stories, the narrative of a world-altering flood.
It's a story that resonates, doesn't it? This idea of a massive deluge wiping things clean.
Exactly. Destruction, yes, but also this promise of a fresh start, a new beginning. It's woven into so many ancient cultures. It taps into something deep, maybe a primal fear or fascination with cosmic change.
It really does. And we're going to be looking specifically at the biblical account today, Genesis chapters 6 through 9.
That's right. We'll be meticulously exploring this narrative, divine judgment, incredible preservation, and the setting up of a really foundational covenant.
And it's a powerful place to start Genesis 6, because the scene it paints, well, it's pretty grim. Humanity seems to be right on the edge of total moral collapse.
Things had gotten bad, really bad.
Yeah, humanity's multiplying, spreading across the earth, but there's this shadow growing with it, a deep moral decay setting in. Genesis 6, verses 1 till 5, they just lay it out.
And it starts with that really mysterious bit, the part that's fascinated people for ages. Genesis 6.2, the sons of God, seeing the daughters of men.
That they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose.
And from these unions, the text says, came giants, the Nephilim, and these mighty men which were of old, men of renown. It's such a strange, potent detail.
It really is. Hints at some kind of profound disorder, right? The corruption, maybe even blurring the lines between the divine and human.
Who exactly were these sons of God? People have debated that forever.
Oh, absolutely. Centuries of debate. Divine beings. Fallen angels, maybe just a specific righteous line of humans like Seth's descendants, or powerful kings.
There are so many theories.
There are, but the key thing in the narrative, I think, is what these unions represent. They signal a deviation, a distortion from God's intended order. It sets the stage for this escalating chaos.
And leads right into God's assessment of humanity, which is stark.
Stark is the word, Genesis 6.5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually.
Wow. Not just bad actions, but the thoughts, the imagination, continually evil.
Exactly. It's an indictment of the very source of human motivation, just perpetually corrupted.
What always strikes me, though, is the emotional impact this has on God in the text. It's not presented as some cold, distant judgment.
No, not at all. The language is incredibly, anthropomorphic, giving God these human-like emotions, Genesis 6.6.
And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. That's profound.
It is. It shows a God deeply invested, personally pained by the state of his creation. This repentance, it's not like God made a mistake, but more like profound sorrow, a deep grief that leads to a change in his planned course of action.
So the judgment comes from this place of sorrow, not just anger.
I think that's crucial. It underscores the value God places on creation, even when it's gone so wrong, and the decision itself, radical, comprehensive.
Genesis 6.7, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air.
For it repenteth me that I have made them. It's a total undoing, a cosmic reset, really. And notice, it extends beyond humans. The whole created order seems implicated, tainted by human sin.
But then right in the middle of this universal condemnation, there's this tiny phrase, this pivot, Genesis 6.8.
But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
One man, one exception, changes everything.
It really does. And the text immediately tells us why, verse 9. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God.
What does perfect mean there? Not sinless, surely.
Likely not absolute sinlessness, no. More like blameless in his conduct, having integrity, especially compared to everyone else. He maintained a relationship with God when the world around him hadn't. He walked with God.
And we meet his family briefly, too. Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
His 3 sons, yeah. They become crucial later, obviously, the progenitors of the post-flood world.
Okay, so our mission today on this deep dive is to walk meticulously through these chapters, Genesis 6 to 9.
Right. Judgment, preservation, covenant, it's all in there.
We're looking for insights into faith, obedience, human fallibility that definitely comes up, and this whole idea of second chances and cosmic order. It's going to be quite the journey.
Okay, let's really dig into this narrative now, starting with that overwhelming corruption and God's grief in chapter 6. It wasn't just a few bad apples, was it?
No, far from it. The text paints a picture of sin that's not just present, but pervasive.
Yeah,
It's like a darkness that's consumed everything. Remember, sin starts small back in Eden.
right, the disobedience. Then Cain and Abel.
Exactly. It escalates. By Genesis 6, it's reached this horrifying crescendo. Verse 11 says, the earth was filled with violence. Not just isolated incidents, but systemic violence. Ruthlessness, depravity, just everywhere.
And that connects back to those sons of God and the Nephilim. It seems directly linked. Genesis 6, verses 2 and 4 again. The sons of God taking wives, leading to these giants, or Nephilim, the mighty men, the men of renown, whoever they were, these unions amplified the chaos.
Maybe introducing some kind of unnatural power dynamic.
Possibly. It suggests a society where power, maybe even this distorted power, was running rampant, completely unchecked, ambition without limits.
And the end result is that devastating assessment from God in verse 5.
And God saw that the wickedness of man was great. Every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. It's a spiritual diagnosis, isn't it? The very core, the wellspring of human thought, is tainted, always leaning towards evil.
Just relentless negativity.
Yeah. And that leads to God's reaction, that deep emotional response we talked about. Verse 6, and it repented the Lord, and it grieved him at his heart.
It shows God isn't detached. He's invested. He's hurt by this.
Absolutely. That Hebrew word, nechem, it implies deep sorrow, regret, a change in course because of the pain caused. It's not a change in God's essential nature, but a change in his action based on this profound grief.
And that grief, that sorrow, it leads to the decision for destruction.
It does. The solemn decree in verse 7, I will destroy man, both man and beast and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air. It's a complete unmaking of creation.
Even the animals. Why them?
It implies, I think, that human sin had corrupted the whole system. The violence wasn't just human on human. It had perhaps poisoned the entire created order, necessitating this total reset.
But even then, amidst this absolute judgment, there's that single spark, Noah.
Yes, Genesis 6:8 to 9. But Noah found grace. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. He's chosen, not because he's inherently perfect, but because of his character, his relationship with God in a world that had turned its back.
It's God's grace, his unmerited favor, that singles him out.
Exactly. It's a sovereign choice. God sees something different in Noah.
And God warns him directly. No ambiguity.
No. Verse 13 is crystal clear. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth.
That's terrifyingly direct.
It is. It underscores the absolute seriousness of the situation. And it sets the stage for Noah's mission, a mission of truly cosmic importance. He's being entrusted with the future.
So the judgment is decided, but remarkably, God doesn't just stop there. He provides a way out, an incredibly detailed plan for salvation.
It's astonishing, isn't it? It's not just build a boat. It's like divine naval architecture. Genesis 6:14 starts right off. Make thee an ark of gopher wood.
Gopher wood. Do we even know what that is?
Well, scholars debate it. Cypress is a common suggestion, maybe something else known for durability and water resistance. But the point is, it's a specific, strong wood chosen for resilience.
And then the construction details.
Meticulous. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. Pitch, likely bitumen for waterproofing. Essential, obviously. This thing had to withstand unimaginable conditions.
It wasn't just a raft.
No way. This was engineered for survival.
And the size. The dimensions given in verse 15 are just staggering.
They really are. The length, 300 cubits. The breadth, 50 cubits. And the height, 30 cubits.
Okay, put that in perspective. A cubit is what, elbow to fingertip?
Roughly, yeah. Around 18 to 22 inches. So we're talking something like 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high.
That's enormous. Longer than a football field.
Easily. About the size of a decent cargo ship today, and 3 stories tall. Imagine building that in the ancient world. The sheer scale is mind-boggling.
It demonstrates the magnitude of the rescue operation, really.
Absolutely. And the design details continue. Verse 16. A window shalt thou make, and the door in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories. It's a multi-deck vessel designed for long-term habitation for Noah, his family, and all those animals.
That single window is interesting, too. Maybe for light, ventilation, but limited exposure.
Possibly. Keeping the focus inward, perhaps. Minimizing the view of the chaos outside.
And right after these detailed plans, God reminds Noah why this is necessary. Verse 17.
And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh. Everything that is in the earth shall die. No doubt about the totality of the coming judgment.
But then, immediately, this contrast, this word of hope, verse 18.
But with thee will I establish my covenant. This is huge. A pre-flood promise, an unconditional commitment from God specifically to Noah and his family. You will survive this.
It's the first mention of God establishing a covenant like this, isn't it?
It is. It sets this pattern, this theme of covenant relationship that runs right through the Bible. It's a unilateral promise of preservation.
And it's not just humans being saved, the animals too.
Right. Verses 19-20. And of every living thing, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive, male and female. It's divine conservation on a grand scale, ensuring the animal kingdom survives and can repopulate.
And they'd need food, obviously. A lot of food.
Verse 21 covers that. Gather all food that is eaten for the family and for every single creature on board. The logistics alone are staggering to think about.
It required incredible foresight, incredible effort.
And incredible faith, which brings us to Noah's response. Verse 22.
Thus did Noah. According to all that God commanded him, so did he. Simple as that.
Simple yet profound. No arguing, no questioning, no trying to cut corners. He just did it. He built this colossal, seemingly absurd structure based purely on God's word. Imagine the ridicule he must have faced.
Building a giant boat, miles from any sea, preparing for a rain like no one had ever seen.
It's an incredible testament to his faith. Faith isn't just believing something, it's acting on it, even when it seems utterly illogical to the world.
Okay, so the ark is finished. This massive vessel, a product of divine instruction and human obedience, stands ready. Now comes the moment of truth, loading it up.
Right, Genesis 7. God gives the final call. Come thou and all thy house into the ark. And he reaffirms why Noah was chosen. For thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. It's a confirmation of Noah's standing, a final invitation into safety.
And the instructions for the animals get more specific here, don't they?
They do. It's fascinating. Genesis 6 said, 2 of every sort, but chapter 7, verses 2 and 3 refines it. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, of fowls also of the air by 7s.
7's for the clean animals. Why the difference?
It strongly suggests a provision for sacrifice after the flood. Clean animals were used in worship. Having 7 pairs, or perhaps 7 individuals, the text is slightly ambiguous, would allow for sacrifices without endangering the species' survival. It hints at a pre-Mosaic understanding of ritual purity.
That makes sense. Planning ahead for worship in the new world.
Exactly. And the timeline gets very tight now. God gives a final warning in verse 4, for yet 7 days and I will cause it to rain.
7 days. Just 1 week to get everyone and everything on board before the end of the world as they knew it. Talk about pressure.
Immense pressure. But Noah's response, consistent. Verse 5. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him.
That phrase keeps repeating. It's central to his character.
It really is. His obedience is unwavering. He acts on faith, trusting God's word even with the clock ticking down.
And the text gives us Noah's age at this point, verse 6.
And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. It anchors the event, gives it the sense of historical specificity within its own narrative framework.
Then the boarding itself, verses 7 to 9. Noah, his family, all the animals.
2 and 2, as God had commanded Noah. Can you even imagine the scene? Pairs of every creature, big and small, moving towards the ark. It's an incredible picture of divine orchestration.
Must have been quite a sight. And
Yeah.
then it begins.
It does. Verse 11 describes it with such cosmic drama. In the 600th year of Noah's life, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened.
That language, fountains of the great deep, windows of heaven, what does that imply?
It points to that ancient cosmology we mentioned. Water from below the earth erupting, water from above the sky pouring down. It's not just rain, it's the deconstruction of the created order, the primordial waters overwhelming the land. A true decreation.
So a catastrophic unleashing of water from everywhere.
Precisely. And then the relentless rain on top of that. Verse 12. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
40 days. That number comes up a lot in the Bible, doesn't it?
It does, often associated with testing, judgment, preparation, Moses on Sinai, Jesus in the wilderness. It signifies a period of intense divine action and profound consequence.
And then that final powerful detail in verse 16, after everyone is inside.
And the Lord shut him in. Wow.
Yeah. What does that signify to you?
It's incredibly significant. It shows God's direct involvement, his personal care in sealing the ark, protecting those inside, but it also marks a point of no return. The door is closed, judgment is commencing, salvation is secured for those inside, but the door is now shut by God himself.
So the door is shut, the rain is falling, the fountains of the deep are broken open. Let's follow the narrative through the flood itself, the waters rising, covering everything, and then eventually slowly receding. Genesis 7.17 through 8.12.
Right. The first thing noted is the ark's response. It doesn't sink, it's lifted. Verse 17, the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth.
So it's floating, separated from the destruction below.
Exactly. Verse 18, the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters themselves, they just kept rising, prevailing exceedingly, verse 19 says.
Covering everything.
Even the mountains.
Yes. Verse 19 is explicit. All the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. And verse 20 gives a depth. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. 15 cubits, but 22 feet above the highest peaks. That's total inundation. No escape possible outside the ark.
None whatsoever, which leads to the devastating consequence described in verses 21 and 22.
And all flesh died that moved upon the earth. All in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died.
It's stark. A complete erasure of terrestrial life. Every breathing thing on dry land gone. It underscores the totality of the judgment.
Leaving only the remnant. Verse 23.
And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. It highlights the miraculous nature of their preservation, just this one vessel carrying the future.
In this state, this watery world, it lasted for a long time.
A very long time. Verse 24. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. 5 months of just water.
Everywhere. 5 months. Imagine being inside that ark. But then a shift, a turning point. Genesis 8, verse 1.
And God remembered Noah. This is so important. Remembered here isn't like God forgot and suddenly recalled. It means he turned his active attention towards Noah, towards his promise. It's an act of divine mercy and intervention.
He acts on his promise.
Exactly. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. That wind, the ruach in Hebrew, same word used for God's Spirit moving over the waters in creation. It starts the reversal process.
The decreation starts to undo itself.
You could see it that way. Verse 2, the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven are stopped. The rain is restrained. The sources of the flood are cut off.
And the waters begin to go down. Verse 3 says they returned continually.
Slowly but surely, after that 150-day peak, the water levels start dropping. The earth begins to re-emerge.
And then, a significant moment, the ark finds a resting place. Verse 4.
And the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day upon the mountains of Ararat. Ararat is a region likely in modern-day eastern Turkey. Finally, solid ground beneath them, even if it's high mountain peaks. A huge milestone.
And they can start seeing land again. Verse 5.
The waters decreased continually until the 10th month, were the tops of the mountains seen. It's a gradual process. Things are drying out, slowly becoming habitable again.
But Noah doesn't just rush out. He's patient. He starts sending out birds.
Right. First, a raven. Verse 7. It went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up. Ravens are scavengers. They can survive on floating carcasses. So its behavior doesn't tell Noah much about habitable land.
So he tries a different approach. The dove. Verse 8.
Yes. He sends out a dove, looking for a sign of suitable land. The first time, verse 9, it comes back. Found no rest for the sole of her foot. Still too much water.
He waits another week, sends it out again. Verse 11.
And this time, success. Lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off, so Noah knew that the waters were abated.
The olive leaf. Such a powerful symbol of peace, of new life emerging.
A clear sign the vegetation was returning, that the earth was healing.
Then he waits another 7 days, sends the dove a third time.
Yeah.
Verse 12.
And this time, returned not again unto him any more. The dove found a place to stay. Dry land was now widespread enough.
So Noah gets the confirmation he needs, but he still waits.
He does. He waits until the beginning of the next year, his 601st year, verse 13. He removes the ark's covering and sees the face of the ground was dry. Relief.
But even then, he waits a bit longer.
Right, until the 2nd month, the 27th day, verse 14 gives the final word. Was the earth dried? Completely dry. Ready. It's been over a year since the flood began. Patience and careful observation marked Noah's approach right to the end.
What an ordeal. Over a year sealed inside that ark. Now, finally, the moment they've been waiting for leaving the ark, stepping onto a cleansed earth. Yep. Genesis 8.15 through 9.7 covers this new beginning.
It's a huge moment. And notice they don't leave until God tells them to. Verse 15, and God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth.
He waited for the command?
He did. And the command includes everyone and everything. Thou and thy wife and thy sons bring forth with thee every living thing, that they may breed abundantly. and be fruitful and multiply. It's a direct echo of the creation mandate in Genesis 1.
A signal for life to start flourishing again, a renewal.
Absolutely. So verses 18 and 19 describe them all exiting the ark. Imagine that first breath of fresh air, stepping onto solid, clean ground after so long.
Must have been incredible. And what's Noah's very first act on this new earth?
Worship. Verse 20. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings.
Using those extra clean animals he brought.
Precisely. It's an immediate act of gratitude, acknowledging both deliverance, his sovereignty, rededicating the renewed earth to him.
And God's response to this offering is fascinating. Verse 21.
And the Lord smelled a sweet savor. This pleasing aroma signifies acceptance. And then God makes this profound internal vow, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake.
Even though he knows man's nature hasn't fundamentally changed?
Exactly. He follows it immediately with, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. It's a stunning admission. God recognizes the persistence of human sinfulness, but chooses self-restraint. He won't use this method again.
That's a huge shift. Acknowledging the reality, but changing the approach.
It is, and it leads directly into the promise of cosmic stability in verse 22.
While the earth remaineth, seedtime and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease.
A promise of predictable natural order, no more cosmic chaos like the flood, a stable environment for life to continue, demonstrating God's commitment despite human failings.
Then God formally blesses Noah and his sons. Chapter 9, verse 1.
Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. The mandate is renewed. Humanity gets its commission again, a fresh start.
But there are some changes noted in the relationship between humans and animals. Verse 2.
Yeah, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast. This suggests a shift from the original harmony, maybe a necessary consequence in a world now marked by potential violence, introducing a dynamic of dominion and animal fear.
And a change in diet, too. Verses 3 and 4.
Humans are now explicitly permitted to eat meat. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. A significant expansion from the pre-flood diet.
But with a crucial restriction.
A very important one. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. The prohibition against consuming blood. Blood represents life, its sacredness. It sets an ethical boundary, respecting the life force even when consuming meat.
And this leads into the principle of the sanctity of human life itself. Verses 5 and 6.
Yes. God establishes accountability for taking human life. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Why? For in the image of God made he man.
So capital punishment is instituted here, based on humans being uniquely made in God's image.
That's the foundation given in the text. It places immense value on human life and establishes a system, albeit a basic one initially, for justice and order in this new world, a moral and legal bedrock.
Okay, so we've got the renewed earth, the blessing, the new rules for life.
Yeah.
Now comes the formal establishment of that promise God made internally, the Noahic covenant. Genesis 9:8 to 17 feels like a really significant moment.
It's absolutely foundational. God makes it explicit now. Verse 9, and I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you.
And not just with humans, right?
Crucially, no. Verse 10, and with every living creature that is with you, this covenant is universal. It encompasses Noah, all future humanity, and all living creatures. It's a divine promise to the entire planet.
And the core promise is...
Verse 11 lays it out clearly. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. It's God's unconditional pledge. He unilaterally promises never again to use a global flood as judgment.
A promise born out of his own decision, his self-restraint we saw earlier.
Exactly. He knows humanity's nature, yet he makes this binding promise anyway. It's an act of pure grace.
And he gives a sign, a beautiful visible sign, the rainbow.
Yes, verses 12 and 13. This is the token of the covenant. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth.
The rainbow becomes the symbol of this promise.
It does. A natural phenomenon imbued with profound divine meaning. And remember that idea of the bow potentially symbolizing warfare in ancient cultures. Placing his bow in the clouds becomes this powerful image of peace, of laying down arms against the earth in this specific way.
That adds another layer. And it's not just a sign for us, is it? Verses 14 to 16 suggest it's also for God.
Right. When I bring a cloud, the bow shall be seen, and I will remember my covenant. Again, remember means God actively calls to mind and reaffirms his promise. It emphasizes his faithfulness. He binds himself to his word, reminded by the very sign he established.
An everlasting covenant, the text calls it.
Yes. Verse 16. It underscores its perpetual nature for all generations, for all creation. Verse 17 wraps it up. This is the token of the covenant, which I have established between me and all flesh. It's comprehensive, universal, and sets the stage for how God will relate to the world moving forward.
So we have this incredible covenant, this promise of stability, this beautiful sign, a fresh start. But the story doesn't end on that perfect high note, does it?
Yeah.
Genesis 9, the last part, gives us this rather uncomfortable story about Noah's vineyard.
No, it doesn't end perfectly. And this incident is a really sobering, immediate reminder that while the earth was cleansed, the human heart, well, it wasn't fundamentally changed by the water.
It shows that enduring human fallibility.
Exactly. Verse 20 says, Noah began to be an husbandman and he planted a vineyard. He's rebuilding civilization, engaging in agriculture, a normal post-flood activity.
But then verse 21.
And he drank of the wine and was drunken and he was uncovered within his tent. The righteous man, the ark builder, the one who walked with God, shows profound human weakness, vulnerability.
It's quite shocking, really, after everything he went through and represented.
It is. And it leads to this really difficult family situation. Verse 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without.
Now, just seeing him wasn't the issue, was it? It was the telling, the exposure.
That's the common interpretation. It's seen as an act of profound disrespect, a violation of patriarchal honor. Instead of covering his father's shame, he exposes it, perhaps even mocks it.
Because his brothers react very differently, Shem and Japheth.
Completely differently. Verse 23 describes how they took a garment, walked backward into the tent so they wouldn't see their father's nakedness, and covered him. An act of deliberate respect, preserving his dignity.
Honoring their father even in his moment of weakness.
Yes. And when Noah wakes up, verse 24, he knew what his younger son had done unto him. The consequences are immediate and prophetic.
He curses Canaan, Ham's son, not Ham himself.
Right. Verse 25, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. This curse on Canaan becomes significant later in Genesis and Exodus, setting up the relationship between Israel and the Canaanites.
And then blessings for Shem and Japheth.
Yes. Verses 26 and 27, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. These are seen as foreshadowing the future destinies and roles of their descendants. Shem's line, through which Abraham eventually comes, receives the primary spiritual blessing. Japheth is blessed with expansion.
This whole episode, right after the flood and the covenant, it's a harsh dose of reality.
It really is. It shows sin didn't get washed away. Human brokenness, disrespect, the potential for conflict. It's all still there right from the start of this new world. It sets the stage for the rest of human history, really.
And the chapter ends by noting Noah's long life after the flood.
Verse 28 and 29. He lived 350 years after the flood, dying at 950, marking the end of that initial post-flood era, passing the baton to his sons and their descendants.
Let's really dive into the characters now, starting with Noah himself. He's presented as righteous, obedient, but also, as we just saw, deeply flawed. A complex figure.
Absolutely. That initial description in Genesis 6.9 is key. A just man and perfect in his generations, Noah walked with God. In a world drowning in evil where every imagination was wicked, he finds grace. Genesis 6.8. That suggests profound integrity, a relationship with God that set him apart.
That word perfect, again, more about being blameless in conduct for his time.
Exactly. Blameless relative to the pervasive corruption around him, maintaining his walk with God when others didn't. He was the standout figure God could work through.
And his defining action, really, is that incredible obedience.
Unwavering obedience. Building the ark to those exact daunting specifications. Gathering the animals. Entering untold. Genesis 6.22 and 7.5 hammer it home. According to all that God commanded him, so did he.
That required immense faith, didn't it? Acting on something unseen, unheard of.
Monumental faith. Faith that wasn't just passive belief, but translated into years of hard, practical, costly labor. Building that massive vessel on dry land, likely facing ridicule. It's faith in action.
And through this obedience, he becomes almost like a second Adam, right?
In many ways, yes. He's the patriarch of this recreated humanity. He receives that blessing and mandate in Genesis 9.1 to 7, very similar to Adam's original commission. Be fruitful and multiply. He's the head of this new beginning.
But then comes that moment of fallibility. The drunkenness, Genesis 9:20-21. It's jarring.
It is jarring and deeply humanizing. After all the righteousness, all the obedience this fall, it powerfully illustrates that the flood didn't purify the human heart. Even the best, the chosen one, is still susceptible to sin, to weakness. Righteousness isn't a permanent state. It's a continuous walk, a struggle.
It shows nobody gets a pass on human nature, not even Noah.
Precisely. It keeps the narrative grounded, realistic about the challenges ahead for humanity.
Now let's look at God's portrayal in these chapters. Grieving judge, merciful preserver, covenant maker. He shows a lot of facets.
He really does. That anthropomorphic language is so striking early on. Genesis 6:6. It repented the Lord, grieved him at his heart. This shows a God who isn't remote or indifferent. He's deeply invested, emotionally affected by creation's choices. His grief underscores the tragedy of humanity's fall.
So the judgment flows from that grief.
It seems so. He acts as the righteous judge against the pervasive evil and violence, Genesis 6:5, 11-13. The flood is presented as a just, necessary response to total corruption. It displays his sovereignty, his demand for moral order. Severe, yes, but not arbitrary.
But alongside the judge, he's the merciful preserver.
Absolutely. That moment, God remembered Noah, Genesis 8:1, is pivotal. It signals his act of mercy, his faithfulness to his promise to preserve life. Guiding Noah, sending the wind, stopping the rain, commanding them to leave the ark. These are all acts of preservation and care.
And it all culminates in him being the covenant-making God.
Yes. Taking the initiative to establish the Noahic covenant, Genesis 6:1, 9.8-17. This reveals his desire for relationship, for order, despite knowing humanity's flaws, and the fact that it's a unilateral promise, guaranteed by God himself with the rainbow as a sign, speaks volumes about his steadfastness, his grace.
And finally, there's that element of divine self-restraint, looking forward.
That's a profound insight. Genesis 8.21 again, acknowledging the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, yet resolving not to destroy by flood again. It shows God's long suffering, his commitment to finding other ways to deal with human sin rather than resorting to cosmic resets. It sets a new paradigm for his interaction with a fallen yet still loved creation.
Okay, this story is so rich. Let's unpack some of the major theological and thematic threads running through it. First, that unavoidable theme, divine judgment on sin and the problem of evil.
It's central, isn't it? The text hammers home the sheer totality of human wickedness. Genesis 6.5, every imagination. Only evil continually. It's not just bad actions, it's a corrupted source. And the result? Genesis 6.11, the earth was filled with violence. The flood is God's direct, drastic response to this pervasive depravity, an act of righteous judgment.
And the scale of the judgment destroying all flesh, Genesis 7:21, really underscores the seriousness of sin in the biblical view.
It does. It shows sin isn't just a personal failing. It has cosmic consequences. It affects the entire created order. The judgment's severity reflects the depth of the corruption.
But amidst that judgment, there's the theme of the remnant, Noah and his family.
Yes, God preserves a faithful few, Genesis 7.23. Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him. This concept of a remnant, a righteous line preserved through judgment to carry forward God's purposes, becomes a hugely important theme throughout the rest of the Bible. It highlights God's selective grace and his commitment to continuity.
And Noah's role highlights that theme of faith and obedience against all odds.
His obedience is radical. Building that ark, Genesis 6.22, obeying commands that must have seemed insane without precedent. It required extraordinary faith in God's word alone.
It shows faith isn't just intellectual belief, is it?
No, it's active response, it's commitment, it's costly action, often in the face of skepticism or ridicule. Noah embodies this practical working faith.
We also talked about the flood as a kind of decreation and recreation.
Right. The language echoes Genesis 1 in reverse. Unleashing the fountains of the deep and windows of heaven, Genesis 7.11, returns the earth to a watery chaos. Then the waters recede, dry land appears. Life is commanded to multiply again. It's a cosmic reset.
But crucially, not a perfect reset.
No, because God acknowledges the human heart remains flawed. The imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, Genesis 8.21. The external world is cleansed, but the internal problem persists. This sets a realistic tone for the future.
Which leads directly to the establishment of that first universal covenant, the Noahic covenant.
Genesis 9.8-17. It's foundational. Unilateral God makes the promise. Universal applies to all humanity and all creatures. Unconditional God guarantees he won't flood the earth again.
With the rainbow as that powerful, visible sign.
The token of the covenant, Genesis 9:1 to 16, a constant reminder of God's promise, his self-restraint. This covenant introduces the whole biblical theme of God relating to humanity through binding promises, setting a pattern for future covenants with Abraham, Moses, David.
But despite the covenant, despite the reset, there's that difficult reality. Sin persists.
God himself acknowledges it, Genesis 8:21. The flood didn't eradicate sin's root in the human heart.
And Noah's vineyard incident, Genesis 9:2 to 23, provides immediate, sobering proof.
Exactly. Right after the new beginning, we see human fallibility, disrespect, the potential for conflict. It demonstrates that the struggle with sin continues, setting the stage for the rest of the human story and the ongoing need for God's grace and intervention.
Let's touch on the cultural and historical context here, drawing on details within Genesis itself. How might an ancient audience have heard this story, given their understanding of the world?
Well, that imagery of the flood source in Genesis 7:11, fountains of the great deep, windows of heaven, that reflects a common ancient Near Eastern cosmology. They pictured a world with waters above the sky, held back by a firmament, and waters beneath the earth.
So the flood wasn't just rain, it was the cosmic structure coming undone.
Precisely. It was the primordial waters reclaiming the created order. A true decreation event in their understanding. That would have resonated deeply.
And the details about the ark itself, the cubit measurements, the gopher wood, the pitch.
The use of cubits, Genesis 6:15, ground it in familiar ancient measurements, even while describing a vessel of almost unbelievable size, 300 by 50 by 30 cubits, specifying gopher wood and pitch, Genesis 6:14, points to real-world ancient boat-building materials and techniques. It adds a layer of practical realism, even within this extraordinary narrative.
What about the distinction between clean and unclean animals? That seems significant appearing so early.
It is. Genesis 7:2, taking 7 pairs of clean and 2 of unclean, shows an understanding of ritual purity and categories suitable for sacrifice existed before the law of Moses. It suggests continuity in God's requirements for worship.
And the covenant structure itself.
The very idea of a beret, a covenant, Genesis 6:18, 9:8-17, was a well-understood concept in the ancient world, binding agreements, often sealed with signs or tokens. The rainbow as the token, Genesis 9:1-16, fits this pattern, turning a natural event into a divine guarantee. And as we discussed, the bow and the cloud might specifically evoke an image of divine disarmament, a promise of peace.
Finally, the family dynamics after the flood, Noah and his sons.
Genesis 9:18-27, the incident with Ham and the resulting curses and blessings, reflects ancient patriarchal structures. Family honor, the consequences of disrespect, the power of a father's prophetic words to shape lineage and destiny. These were powerful concepts in that world. It provides an origin story within the text for the relationships between different peoples descended from Noah's sons.
Now we have to acknowledge, stories of a great flood aren't unique to Genesis, are they?
No, they're quite common in ancient literature, especially in Mesopotamia. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the most famous example, with its hero Utnapishtim building a boat to survive a flood sent by the gods.
So there are similarities. A flood, a hero, a boat, saved animals.
Striking similarities on the surface.
Yeah.
But the differences are profound and theologically crucial.
Okay, what are some key differences?
In Gilgamesh, the gods send the flood because humans are too noisy. It's almost petty. The gods themselves are portrayed as chaotic, even scared of the flood they unleashed. Compare that to Genesis, where the flood is a response to deep moral corruption, a just though grieving judgment by a sovereign God who remains in control.
So the reason for the flood is entirely different.
Entirely, and the character of the divine is vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim is warned secretly by one god against the others. In Genesis, God openly commands Noah, establishing a covenant. The purpose in Genesis is moral purification and recreation based on a covenant relationship, not just population control by capricious deities. The Genesis account uses a familiar story framework, but fills it with radically different theological meaning about God's character and his relationship with humanity.
That contrast really highlights the unique message of the Genesis account. Let's connect these threads now to the bigger picture in Genesis in the Bible. How does this story build on what came before?
Well, you can draw a direct line from the fall in Genesis 3. The wickedness God sees in Genesis 6 isn't random. It's the culmination of sin's spread.
So from Adam and Eve's disobedience
To Cain's murder of Abel in chapter 4, then Lamech's boastful violence later in chapter 4, Each generation seems to amplify the rebellion, the corruption. By chapter 6, it's reached this point where every imagination was only evil continually.
The flood isn't just out of the blue then. It's a response to this escalating trajectory of sin.
Exactly. It's the tragic but seemingly necessary consequence of humanity turning so completely away from God's design, filling the earth with violence.
And this whole event acts as a major turning point, doesn't it? A reset.
A huge turning point. It's a radical demarcation in biblical history. God acts decisively to purge evil, but also chooses preservation, choosing to start again with Noah's family. It shows his commitment to creation, even when he has to employ drastic measures.
And it changes the dynamic between God and humanity going forward.
It does. From this point, the relationship is explicitly framed by covenant, starting with the Noahic covenant. God sets new parameters, promising stability, establishing rules for life, even while acknowledging human weakness.
Which introduces that massive biblical theme, covenants.
Absolutely central. The Noahic covenant, Genesis 6.18, 9.8-17, is the first explicitly established universal covenant. It lays the groundwork, the blueprint for how God will structure his relationship with humanity.
So the principles we see here, God's faithfulness, his promises, the use of signs,
become foundational for understanding everything that follows. The later covenants with Abraham, with Moses at Sinai, with David, they all build on this initial framework of God binding himself to his people through solemn promises, working out his plan for redemption within that covenant structure. The Noah story really launches this crucial biblical concept.
What an incredible narrative we've explored today.
Yeah.
Genesis chapters 6 through 9, it's just immense. We started with a world utterly consumed by wickedness, leading to profound divine grief.
Then that cataclysmic judgment, the flood, reshaping the entire planet, but followed by the miraculous preservation of life through Noah, his family, and the creatures on the ark.
And culminating in that profound moment after the flood, Noah's worship, God's internal vow, and the establishment of that everlasting covenant.
Sealed by the rainbow. It's such a powerful symbol, isn't it? Not just a pretty sight, but God's promise of hope, peace, his commitment never again to destroy all life by flood, a constant reminder of his faithfulness.
It's a story that covers the depths of judgment and the heights of grace. So much to think about.
Definitely. Destruction and renewal, judgment and promise, human failure and divine faithfulness, all wrapped up together.
So as we finish this deep dive, here's something for you, our listener, to ponder. Reflecting on this epic journey from the reasons for the flood to the promise of the rainbow, what does it reveal to you about the nature of divine promises, especially when faced with ongoing human fallibility? And how might these ancient themes of judgment, second chances, and the search for enduring order resonate with our own hopes and challenges in the world today?